Hello everybody just joining. Yeah, but it's not 3 in the fucking morning, is it, for me, mate? You're in the wrong time zone, that's why. Hello to everybody joining. Yeah, I'm doing a fairly early stream even for me today because I'm having to wait in for a parcel, which isn't fun. So if at any point I randomly just stop the stream, it's because my parcel's arrived. But yeah, this is the only really time of day I can actually do the stream at the moment because I have to do other stuff later on. Yeah, because it totally depends on what time zone people are in. I think people forget that they assume everybody is on the same time zone as them. So why are people doing things at different time zones? But yep, it's 20 past 9 UK time in the morning, so not too early. Obviously, like I said, waiting in for a parcel, which is the most boring thing in the world. .1911 out of those two. But I wouldn't pick 1911 if I could pick any pistol. That'd be the SIG P226. And out of all the World War II handguns, probably the Browning high power. Is that sort of the improved 1911 but in 9mm? Alright. So I'll give it a couple of minutes before we start talking about anything properly, just to see if more people join, but at least people have obviously got the notifications straight away today, unlike one of the streams I did where it seemed to take 10 or so minutes for anybody to actually get in. If you can get a surplus one for a lot cheaper in good condition, obviously go with a surplus one. But obviously, if you can't get a good condition surplus M50, or it's not much of a reduction, get a new one. But I don't think you can technically get a totally brand new M50 just for the fact that they wouldn't sell it to a civilian. If you think the GP5 is the most comfortable mask ever, you've not worn many masks. It's not too uncomfortable if you get one in the right size, but it's certainly not comfortable just due to how the mask's shaped and the rubber it's made from. No, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons. Most nerdy thing I did is I used to play 40k tabletop, but then I got sick of that just because they kept bringing out new codex that you had to buy and everything else. And obviously it's a lot of time and effort to keep gluing and painting models, as well as all the money involved, and they keep putting the figures up, don't they? And Games Workshop now don't realise why it's not working as well. It's just purely because the more you kind of raise the prices and, you know, shaft people more and more on the stuff, you know, the more like less people are actually going to want to get into it. Yeah, sadly, as I've said before, can't get an M40 till I eventually see one for sale in the UK for a sensible price, because sometimes I see them in the UK for like well over £100, which I'm not paying, and other times obviously I can see them cheap in America, which I can't legally have sent to me. Sometimes I see them in other countries as well where I could import them, but then again, I don't like ordering them from out of the UK just simply because UK customs could take my parcel at any moment and I might not get compensation back. If you're in the US, you can get them for about $30 because I see lots of eBay listings on the US eBay for them about that, but obviously, like I said, I can't get one because I'm not in the US, and if I spent $30 on it, there's a very good chance that it'll get stopped before leaving the US or get stopped coming into the UK, and then I've lost my money. What's the private message? But as I've said before, I don't normally check the messages on YouTube because I very rarely get them. I'll have a quick look. I replied to your message, mate, so I don't know what you're on about. Yeah, you sent me a message and I replied to it, so... No, I wouldn't do a meet-up with fans because lots of them threaten to kill me. eBay? Literally, whenever people say we can get gas masks, just go on eBay. I have no idea, especially... I mean, it's more worth it in the US, I guess, but I'm not in the US, but I'd say no to any military-related thing in the UK. There's a good chance I wouldn't get it, and there's also a good chance you could be arrested or fined for sending it. I get the airsoft gun question every stream. The last message you sent me wasn't about... yep, it was about M10 filters. And you said, had I heard anything about the filters, and I've already sent you a reply to that. So I have replied to it. I have no idea about in Australia. Communism in the EU is the same thing. Marpat, easily. Marpat, because it's an actually effective camouflage pattern, unlike UCP. Unless you get your UCP really dirty. We were just speaking about the M40. Were you not listening, or have you just come into the chat? Well, the Australian camouflage looks alright, but, you know. I've got the issue at the moment where YouTube's promoting my videos again, which is kind of great, but it's also the issue that lots of people who have no interest in gas masks come on there and just leave really stupid comments. Isn't one of those the original name for multicam? Let me have a look. Yeah, isn't OCP the one that predated multicam? In the UK we don't even have multicam anyway, we have MDP, which is almost the same but a bit different. Yeah, Mike, a few people have already been complaining that I'm streaming too early for them, but they don't understand what time zones are, I guess. Like I said before, all the further deactivation things are a bit pointless. Alright, cheers. I hope you're making a joke when you say UCP is more effective. You know, it's considered to be a failed camouflage pattern that didn't work properly. The problem is I can't actually read sarcasm on the internet comments. So, you know, when people say something that's just really stupid, I can't tell if they're being stupid or if they're actually making a joke. Obviously a trench knife. Yeah, like I said, sometimes I do streams in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening, and there's always going to be people that complain, because whenever I do it, there'll be people where it's not a good time zone for them. Yeah, they come on watch anyway, which is a bit weird, isn't it? When, especially like people complaining I'm doing a stream too early, but they're obviously watching it, so they must have been up doing something. But yeah, yeah, I've got to wait in for a parcel all day today, Mike, so I said to people if the doorbell rings and I suddenly stop the stream, that's why. But I thought I'd do one while I have to sit around without much to do, because like I said, it annoys me having to wait in for a parcel, because, you know, you're always, aren't you, thinking, oh, if I go and do something, that's when the courier will turn up and he'll knock and run. So, like, you're always just sat down doing nothing. I've got other jobs I could be getting on with, but I can't do it. You could drink soup through a drinking tube on a gas mask, that should work, as long as it's not a thick soup, otherwise it might clog it. It totally depends on what's currently on the surplus market cheap. Your best thing to do is look up RD40 filters, because they're the ones that are generally cheaper because they're sold for industrial use. There's more volume in sales. No, I can't recommend DX at all, simply for the reason that because the laws keep changing, you could buy something that would then be made illegal to own. You just look on your messages, in YouTube messages. Where you sent me it, my reply will be right underneath because I sent you a reply. Alright, is that where they like look at your perforated eardrum and everything? And all that sort of stuff. I've had Magnum boots before, Jacob, but they were alright, but they didn't last me a year before they fell apart. That's why I like actually spending less and buying the actual surplus boots, because they're generally made to better quality than all the modern sort of boots. Modern boots are more comfortable and breathable, but I find they fall apart quite quickly. Yeah, hopefully that's all right then. One of my friends is going on holiday and he left last night, his flight, and it's like a 14-hour flight, he was saying. So I'm still waiting to hear from him to see if he's landed safely, but that's going to be, yeah, quite a while, because I think it's almost going to be like, you know, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock time by the time he lands, because of just how long a flight it was. Wow, you could live in the woods for the rest of your life, I guess, if that's what you want to do, but I don't think I'd recommend that. Bayonet on the rifle is more effective because it's like using a spear. But yeah, I've got my new car and I'm really liking it, actually. I'm really, you know, pleasantly surprised because of how cheap it was, how good it is. Everybody who I've given a lift in it so far as well is really surprised when they find out it wasn't even 10 grand for the car, for a new car. I don't know the Swiss SM3, but the Swiss SM90 is meant to be very good. That's the one on the cover of Stalker, Call of Pripyat. Right, see ya. No, I didn't get a Humvee. No, you're not too far off with Lada, because apparently Lada is now owned by, what's it, Renault? But no, it's a Dacia, so Romanian car. But it's but all the parts on it are Renault Clio parts. So it's basically getting a Clio, but spending half the money on it. No, it totally depends on what the car is. You can obviously buy second-hand cars quite cheaply, but there's no guarantee of how long they're going to work and how much is going to, you know, if they're going to cost, because I used to have an old Golf, and that was fun, but it got to the stage where it was just the upkeep costs were far too high on it. So with the upkeep on the Golf, you know, I just decided I was going to have to sell it and get a new car. Or, you know, get a very new second-hand car. But then I was able to get a brand new Dacia Sandero Laureate, which is the top model of the Sanderos. Which has all the things like cruise control in it, parking sensors, all that sort of stuff. A lot of stuff I wouldn't really use, but it's nice to have it in there. And that was about £9 because I bought a pre-reg one. So it only had 59 miles on it when I got it, but that saved me like £1.5 doing it that way. It's not in notifications, you have to go on your message box. Alright, yeah, that's alright, Mike. Yeah, I assumed that you'd probably seen it and then forgot to reply, but yeah, like I said, it's been really good actually driving it. Just, I'm obviously having to get used to gear ratios on it at the moment, like turning circle for reverse and everything else, but for actually driving it, it's surprisingly good. The fuel economy so far seems to be coming back as very efficient, which is nice because it's not actually all that sluggish a car, so it's nice that, you know, it's fairly responsive, but you don't actually drink petrol with it all that quickly. L1A1 SLR is my favourite firearm, but that's again a thing that's asked in every stream. Depends on which Ford car. Ford have done a load of good cars and Ford have done a load of crap cars as well, so it totally depends on the Ford and the quality control of the individual car. As I said, you don't check your notification box. Right, I'm going to tell you one more time how to do it, then if you don't do it this time you're getting blocked, just because I think you're doing this to wind me up now. You go on community and then messages. Right, I'll give you a link to where you need to go, because you sent me a message, so you should be able to know how to reply to it. Look, there you go. This is your last chance. That's what you go on to check your YouTube messages. Well, in theory, a crossbow could have infinite foot-pounds of, well, or pounds of energy. Not that you'd want one that high, because there's at least crossbows been made that are like 1,000 pounds of draw weight. Probably a Skoda Fabia, because I don't have a heavy goods license, so I can only drive actual regular cars. Yeah, gun laws are strict. They're not too strict. It's mostly, do you have an actual reason for having a firearm, which I don't, which is why I've never applied for it. But unfortunately, they're getting far more politically controlled now. So if you said, I support a certain political party, the police may ban you from owning firearms for that reason. Because, you know, the UK's turning into a police state. So unless you say, oh, I fucking love our government that do nothing but fuck our country, you're probably not going to get a firearms license anymore. I think you can only fix your bayonets, can't you, when you're ordered to fix your bayonets? Probably have to make a load of crossbows, I guess, in the Mad Max 2 scenario. Because most people don't have guns, do they, in Mad Max? Not since 1922. Most of the things that went wrong with the UK were in the 90s under Tony Blair. No, you're not blocked at the moment. I'm saying I'm going to block you if you keep asking me stupid questions. I've given you the link. Click on the link. But yeah, in the 90s, that was when Tony Blair started changing a lot of the laws. And then when Blair started changing a load of the laws, that's when obviously the country started getting worse, and every Prime Minister after Blair's carried on down this path of more sort of hurt feelings laws and you know, like emotionally driven laws, not actual, you know, laws, how laws should be. So that's one of the big things. Loads of people try and you know, bug me and whatever else, piss me off, because that's what people like doing in streams. But a lot of the people just as well want to talk about a certain subject, and as soon as you move the conversation on, they'll just constantly want to talk about a certain subject. Yeah, they contain asbestos, if that's what you're asking. But the video I did recently that triggered lots of angry people, and I've had to do the most blocks on, apart from like just when YouTube promotes a random video of mine, people who aren't interested in gas masks come on to say, why would you fucking own a gas mask? Wow, you look like a retard. Apart from those people, it's generally on the one on camo, where I've had so many Realtree fanboys get upset when I did the video on hunting camo. And I've even had to do a pinned comment now. It says in the description and in the pinned comment, I'm not saying that you can't use these camos for hunting, use them if you want to, but I'm explaining why the military wouldn't use camo such as Realtree. Well, no, I was sort of saying is UK politics has been on the decline and getting worse since Tony Blair in the 90s for the most part. I know there's like prime ministers before Tony Blair that were bad, but the thing was with Blair is he was the one who made most of the changes to kind of how the legal system works. Probably the Avon M50, because that's what Britain was meant to buy, but went with the GSR. But yeah, like you're saying, in America, it's a very good thing that you have all this stuff written in law that can't be changed, the Constitution, because with Britain it wasn't written in stone, and this was the problem. So they said, oh, you know, some kids got shot, we need to take away the rights for people to have pistols, or some people got shot by a lunatic, we need to take away the rights for people to have semi-automatic weapons, we need to make it harder for people to get even the legal weapons that are still legal now, or sporting rifles, I should say, because they're not intended as weapons. You know, and it's all stuff like that where it was emotionally driven politics rather than actually being the fact of it. Regarding when I block people when they're being dickheads or whatever else, or not listening to what I've told them. Yeah, well, the First Amendment in America is obviously the right to free speech. In the UK, we don't have that. We're told on theory we have it, but if you say something that then offends certain people, it's considered hate speech, and you can go to prison for it. So we have a thing called thought crime, basically. Yeah, like I said, I've actually been to some of those countries where I've been shooting. If I go shooting, it'll be going to America. Because I do want to go to the US, and obviously I speak the language, which is a help. Well, sort of speak the language, because they speak. Well, I treat everybody nicely until they deserve not to be treated nicely. Well, that's the point. The laws are vague, so they're tyrannical. The whole hate speech thing is basically, if you said something that offended somebody, or a third party heard you say something that they considered offensive, you can be done for it without almost any evidence. Alright, see ya. But yeah, like the whole hate speech thing is just stupid because it's a sort of thing of, yeah, nobody's actually broken any real law, for the most part anyway, but, you know, if somebody feels offended, then you've broken the law, so it's one of those things where they can basically arrest and throw anyone in prison if they want to. I've seen a few different Turkish camos, so you'd have to specify the actual print, but whenever I've seen them, they seemed okay. There's been nothing amazing, but nothing bad. Yeah, the Horizon Redback's powerful for a pistol crossbow anyway, and it is fairly, yeah, robust. It's like strong ABS type plastic. Well, it's like if you meet a random person, you might as well be polite to them until, you know, they give you reason not to be polite to them. I'm saying that's the problem with YouTube, is often you'll get somebody come onto a video with a really bad attitude. I'm saying I have a massive list of, you know, reasons why, you know, I could block people, and it's just generally, if you're polite to other people and sensible, you're never going to get blocked, but if it's, you know, when people actually, you know, just act like dicks, or just don't listen when I'm telling them something, that's when they start to wind me up. Yeah, like I said with the US thing, you can't just simply move to the US, which I don't think a lot of people understand. If you're an illegal immigrant, I'm sure you can cross the border illegally. But regular people can't just decide they're suddenly going to become a US citizen. You have to either be able to pay off a massive amount of money to basically buy citizenship, which I think is $500,000, or you have to basically, you know, like pass loads of tests, have a work visa, reason for being there for long enough, I think, and marry an American as well, with other stuff like that. Yeah, I've played all the Bioshock games. Infinite isn't very good, but Bioshock 1 and 2 are good. There was really red camo. That was, I think it was called Rust camo, when one of the nations used it, and it was basically designed as an urban one. It was like grey and kind of red, but it's not like the bright red I have in my red camo trousers. It was like more of a brick red, and that was the whole point. It was kind of grey and brick red to be an urban camo, but, you know, it was one of those things where I think they quickly realised that, you know, just having grey urban camo would be more effective. What do you mean the M10 come out a strange yellow substance? If the filter's leaking, don't use it. Well, the regular well, the US Marines digital print was Marpat, and the old one was American Woodland. Yeah, M81 Woodland. Probably wouldn't like to go to Australia because everything would try and poison me. And it'd be too bloody hot for me in Australia. Yeah, if you've watched my videos, you'd know I'd be into other things other than gas masks, because I've got deactivated guns, I've got crossbows, I've got medieval weapons. Yeah, I support Tommy. I don't agree with everything he's done, because there are some quite questionable things about him, but obviously he has been locked up, and the government is trying to get him killed in prison because he's said things against the government, so I totally support him for that. And because if you don't, you know, it's like, it's the slippery slope, isn't it, where they'll start off with somebody like that, and then they'll come for people who are more and more, you know, almost centrist, or not even, you know, subversive, or whatever you want to call it. Black powder firearms are legal without a licence in the UK, but you can't buy black powder itself, I don't think, without some sort of licence or permission to do it. And I don't think you can shoot the gun without having a firearms certificate. Or you don't get filters wet, full stop. Yeah, the thing is with UCP, if you're in like gravel pits, or you're in you know, some areas and you get the camo dirty, it can actually be alright, but the issue was it was meant to work absolutely everywhere and it just didn't work at all. And now people slate multicam, but at least multicam works out of the packet in a lot more areas. Never played Rust. Couldn't play Insurgency because I'm sure the video would get me done for hate speech in the UK. Cold War, so like 50s to 80s really, for military technology and stuff evolving, because that's when a lot of stuff evolved quite quickly. The reason the UN vehicles aren't camouflaged is they're there for peacekeeping. It's why the UN, like peacekeepers, have the bright blue helmets and vests on. It's to differentiate them from soldiers. I'm subbed to quite a few politics channels that talk about how bad the UK is, so we all know what it's like here. Yeah, I've said before you can use the Chinese hoses with the Soviet masks with a NATO filter at the other side and they should work fine. Although some people have said they haven't, so maybe that's a quality control issue. No, you can only shoot on land you legally own or land you have permission to own on. So if you went into a public place and started shooting, you could be shot by armed police. Because obviously you're just shooting a firearm randomly. Yeah, well, exactly, because that's why they're doing it, is because you can't actually reasonably vote for anybody with a good conscience in Britain. Out of the three main parties, you have Labour, which are the left-wing party. You have the Tories, which are meant to be right-wing, but an authoritarian right-left wing. And then you have the Lib Dems, which are kind of a useless party, but when Nick Clegg broke all his promises, they're going to never be elected again. People just vote for the Lib Dems in their local area if they're the better councillor, but for the most part, Lib Dems are a useless party. So the mainstream parties are totally useless. So if you think of it like America, Labour are the Democrats, and the Conservatives are what should be the Republicans, but they're also the Democrats, just slightly different. So you've got a two-party system where the two parties are almost identical. Both of them are like different types of shit, you know, or different types of poison. Which is the least dangerous poison to drink? I don't know, they're both going to kill you in, you know, slowly painful ways. And that's our issue, but we have a first-past-the-post system in politics, which means, let's say one party got 50% of the vote, and the other got 49% of the vote. But in each constituency, the party that got 50% of the vote got a couple of points over to get the seat for the parliament. That means that they'd win an outright majority. Whereas, you know, what we need to have is proportional representation, so then it would actually be more like a 50-50 split in parliament. Which means a lot of people will never vote for small parties because they have a very defeatist attitude that they could never win the system, which is rigged against them, for sure. Which means that we never move away from this political system that's getting worse and worse, because politicians know they don't actually have to do their jobs anymore, because they're basically, you know, stuck being elected. So that's why people are doing that. No, I've not tried a Pirelli gas mask, but I don't have any Italian masks, as I've answered before. When you say a mini bird, do you mean a poleaxe? Battlefield 4 Firestarter camo, let me look it up. That's the grey and like browny orange one. Yeah, that could work because that orange is close enough to actual brown. It's like if you look at Swiss Alpenflage, that's a similar colour palette, and Swiss, I want to call Swiss now. Swiss Alpenflage works absolutely fine, so yeah, it should work. Well, filter adapters, it depends on are you adapting the mask so you can use a more common filter. I've got next day survival. That's like the stalkery type thing. Well, like I said, I'm not a political channel. If you read the description, you'll see in there that I don't really like to talk about politics or religion. So, you know, like I've said, I will be voting for the least dangerous party in my area. The thing is, if I voted for UKIP in my area, the Tories will win, because I'm not in an area where anybody votes for UKIP. They'll get like 1 or 2% of the vote. So unless I vote for the Lib Dems, which are the least dangerous poison in my area, then the Tories win. If the Tories win, my area is fucked, because they want to build about 10,000 houses on floodland right next to my house, and then put, you know, loads and loads of sort of very low income type people in there. I'm not saying I have anything against the poor, but it's basically, you know, our area will turn into a ghetto if they get away with that. So we've had a lot of protests in our area, and the reason people voted for the Lib Dems in my area was because they were the only party opposed to not building loads of houses in an area not suitable for houses. Oh, and they didn't want to extend any of the roads either, so it's basically put, you know, several thousand more people in our area, but don't extend any of the roads, so the traffic will constantly be jammed, but who gives a flying fuck about that, eh? I've got to shove the poor somewhere. I have no interest in the modern Battlefield games. I've been asked that several times in a stream, so yeah, don't keep asking me. Now, I've been in situations where I've had to use a respirator just to protect my lungs, but they're not survival situations, it's just where you need one for workplace things. I've had knives pulled on me before, but I don't actually carry for just the, you know, legal reasons. And because you can sometimes escalate things, that's why I used to wear a stab vest, but I didn't carry a knife on me. Because, you know, in a scenario like that, I know it's better to be judged by 12 and carried by 6, but I imagine if some sort of junkie pulls a knife on you for a very low level sort of mugging threat, and then I pull my knife and stab the fucker, then that might be life in prison for me. Yeah, I was saying before, Maxwell, that I'm basically I just stream when I feel like streaming, so I can't really plan for other people's time zones, but glad you're enjoying it. Oh, if the Cold War went hot, there probably wouldn't be a world left. Yeah, well, if GCHQ are watching, go actually try and catch some real terrorists, that's all I'll say. Well, most of the Swiss masks are very expensive outside of Switzerland, if you can find them at all, so, yeah, I've only got one Swiss mask for that reason. Alright, see ya. It's funny until people do it non-stop and then I block them, because that's the problem, where I've had people, you know, who every comment, regardless of what the video it is, even if it's about a gas mask, whatever else, go, oh, have you got a license for that? And then whatever the video is, after they've done that like 10 times in a row, they just get a block, because it's not even funny at that point. Like, I actually do find a kind of meme funny itself, but it's sort of how it's applied. So if you literally just spam it on every single video, it's no longer a joke, really, is it? There's no such thing as a knife permit. Well, I think really renewable energy would be the better way to go. But the problem is, a lot of renewable energy isn't good enough yet that you could replace all the actual kind of nuclear and coal and everything else of it, and, you know, have it be efficient. I think in the future, as it continues to get better and better, like, you know, solar farms and things like that are going to become more common, and wind turbines. And I know there are problems with, like, the wind turbines and stuff like that, where they can kill birds and whatever else. But nuclear isn't bad as long as the safety stuff is done right with it. So in most first world countries, nuclear plants are perfectly safe. I got a Mark 7 helmet if you've been watching my videos. So I'm not going to get a Pascut now unless I see one really cheaply, because I've got the Mark 7. I've played the game multiple times, so I've done most of the endings. Right, I'll be on for about another 20 minutes. Now, I suppose it teaches kids good skills. I'm not really for or against it. I've seen bright orange camos that, like, well, not camos, but like bright orange, the high-vis vests that do have like a disruptive kind of pattern on them. But the thing is, as well, is lots of animals don't see colour as we see colour, which was something I covered in the video I did the other day, which triggered all the Realtree fanboys. That because animals don't see as humans do, a lot of the time it's actually just pointless using a camo hunting anyway. Obviously with some animals it would work, but like people never used to actually use hunting camo. A lot of the time people used to go deer hunting wearing like brown clothes or whatever else with the orange vis vests on, and you can still do it with the orange vis vests on, so I don't really think for hunting lots of animals you actually need camo on. It's more about disguising your scent and not making loud noises. Now I've played Plague Inc. Because they're very good masks. You see, if there's a good mask, you like it. If there's a crap mask, you don't like it. So if you get a mask like the S10 and FM12 that are really comfortable, very reliable, there's nothing on them that are really going to fall apart or break, then they're good masks, aren't they? Well, at the moment, I can't afford to leave the UK, and I'd rather stay here, because if there ends up being some sort of thing, and I have to be very careful what I say so I don't get gulagged, where I could improve the state of the country, then I'd like to do that. But, sorry, it's just sometimes when a new chat message comes on, I partially see the new chat message, then it distracts me from what I'm saying. But yeah, as I was saying, it's not even easy to leave the UK anyway. Or especially to emigrate to some countries because of how, you know, qualified you have to be to emigrate. Yeah, but you do know, Mr. Mal, the Mark 6 was not a Kevlar helmet. So, that's like saying, oh, a T-34 tank isn't very good because the T-90 tank is totally different. They're not even in the same class of thing. The Mark 6 was a ballistic nylon helmet. The Mark 7 is a Kevlar 3A helmet. Apparently nations have to put their flags on the camo as like an identifying mark. Yeah, I've been to holiday on Finland, that was nice. Especially when you get north of Helsinki and it's just quite rural. Yeah, steel helmets are alright, there's nothing wrong with a steel helmet, but obviously Kevlar being stronger than steel. A medium thickness Kevlar helmet offers you better protection every way than the steel helmet. It was only like the Mark 6 helmet Britain had, which was thin ballistic nylon, where steel helmet is technically better, because the ballistic nylon was designed to be more lightweight and everything else, but obviously wasn't that great as a camo. I didn't, no, I didn't go in a sauna when I went to Finland. Yeah, I've shot firearms before, but not at all recently. Hello. I think it's more, Ralph, like to do with like military and paramilitary laws, where you need to have identifying marks on your uniform to not be considered, you know, to actually be considered proper combat soldier. Only 22 long rifle. And the shotgun I shot, I think, was 20 gauge or 20 bore, so I haven't shot that high calibers, because, you know, people in the UK tend to not have 7.62 battle rifles kicking about. I listen to all sorts of music, mate, but I don't really listen to anything in any particular genre, loads other than soundtracks. Alright, see ya. I like Rhodesia, but as if you read the description, we're not going into stuff like that, so be very careful what you say next. I've never seen a Lada 1500, I'll look it up just to check. Oh, I might have seen one, but I said I've got my Dacia anyway, so don't need another car for hopefully 20 years now, 10, 20 years. Oh, the really old Lada, Vaz 2103. Yeah, I wouldn't want a car like that. It'd be worse than my Golfer falling apart. Rhodesia was a former country in Africa before it got turned into Zimbabwe and ruined. Yeah, the Dacia isn't an old Dacia, mate. It's a proper Dacia, a modern one. Not one of the old commie block ones. 12, 20 and 410 are all pretty common here. With shotguns. It depends what the person's using it really for shooting for. Because say I got a shotgun license, I could get a shotgun in any of the, you know, gauges or bores I wanted. So, you know, it's really, because if you think about it, 410 is cheaper than 20, 20 is cheaper than 12, so it really depends what you want the shotgun for. I have no idea what the 22 long rifle I shot was. It was just like a bolt action 22, you know, where you had to load each round in individually. It's just I used to know somebody who lived on a farm, but that was kind of before I was really into firearms. So, you know, I did a couple of shots of the novelty of it, and that was it, you know. I'd be much more enthusiastic about that now when filming it, but... I've already said about the license here. I don't have a legitimate reason to have a firearm because I've got no land to shoot it on. There's no gun clubs near me that I'd actually be interested in, because I'd be interested in shooting historical firearms, not actually shooting, you know, trying to shoot really high scores of 22 long rifles onto a target card. So, you know, I've not got a legitimate reason, and due to political views and things I've already said out loud, they wouldn't give me a firearms license, I doubt, because, you know, I'm a political enemy of the state. Yeah, but you're not in the UK, are you? That's the problem. There's lots of things in America and other places, I'm sure. So if you say you want a firearm for self-defense, you will never be given a firearm. You'll be put on a blacklist. Alright, see ya. Time Splitters series, probably Time Splitters Future Perfect's my favourite shooter. No, because how infrared works is it's black and white. Light amplification, when it's dark, they have to use a bright colour for light amplification. In theory, you can get a FLIR, forward-looking infrared, that has a colour palette, but it's not real colours. It's basically like, you know, you can set red hot and things like that. Well, like I've said before, I think some of those Russian titanium helmets are pretty amazing. Oh, if you join a shooting club or a hunting club and you don't turn up, your firearms will be confiscated because you put an you know, other reason. And most people can't go hunting in the UK anyway. I'll look up the Vulcan 5, but most helmets wouldn't offer that level of protection unless it's a big titanium one. Only thing that's coming up when I type in Vulcan 5 is welding helmets, and I'm sure you're not on about a welding helmet. Yeah, but you can't legally have a sawn-off shotgun in the UK regardless. Because by sawing off the barrel you'd be violating the law, just like in America how the ATF would do you. Yeah, I keep wanting to call it FLUR as in F-L-U-R, but it's actually FLIR. Yeah, I can see what you mean, mate. FLIR. Forward-looking infrared, yeah, FLIR. He's on the FLIR. Or the FLIR. Get him on the FLIR. Yeah, like I said, at some point when FLIR cameras, because there is more of a market for them now, end up getting cheap, I will get a FLIR camera for night vision videos, because that would be amazing. Navigate in total darkness, spot somebody hiding, you know, in little bushes and stuff like that. I don't own a gun, Jacob. What are you on about? I've never actually owned a live firearm, and I wouldn't apply for one, as I've said loads of times, because in the UK that means paying loads of money to probably be told no, I can't have a firearm. And is what happening? I think UKIP might have mentioned it before, but the mainstream parties know, because they want to disarm people further and further. They, you know, the politicians would love to have firearms and armed security guards, but nobody else can have them, obviously. Wow, here's the thing, right, Ralph? I could legally buy a black powder revolver because you don't need a license for one, but the shops that sell them won't sell you one unless you have a gun license, because they want to cover themselves. Depends on the mask. Some ones you can, some you can't. A PMG2 you could wear headphones on fairly easily. Well, no, you can't, because like I've just said, if I was to buy one, I'd have to present my firearms license so somebody would sell it me, even though, like I said, you don't need one to buy it. That sellers want to cover themselves, so they don't sell it to some chav who's going to go and blow another chav's head off, you know, like the next day. So they'll require you to have a firearms license to buy it, and at which point I can't present them with a firearms license because I don't have one. Well, what I was saying earlier in the stream, Jacob, is that there was some person, I think it's called English Shooting, I mentioned this in the last stream as well, and he had his firearms taken away because of opinions he expressed in his YouTube videos, and he's far more sensible, I guess you could say, than me, because he even did a video, you know, like apologising for the stuff he said. If it was me, I wouldn't have apologised if they took my guns away. I'd have said, you know, you pricks are taking my guns. What a horrible police state this country is. No, gun licenses are totally country dependent. Yeah, illegal opinions, exactly. What do you mean, what's my opinion on the GP5? You should know if you've watched my videos. Don't use the filter. Well, if they sent me one, it's totally legal for them to send me. That would be fine, right? Because, you know, if they send me something that's illegal for me to own and legal for them to send, it's not a problem. The problem is that sellers won't sell you one because they don't want to get done if there's a shooting involved with it, so they want to vet people by actually having them to need more licenses first. I've not heard of that, but I assume it's where people have to only buy food from the dollar store and survive. Avon CT12, I've already answered that loads of times. Oh, you can still have your firearms taken away from you in the States. California's already pretty much doing that. There's lots of things where you can be barred from buying guns in the States, so I wouldn't really laugh at us, because if you don't watch your Second Amendment rights in the US, you're going to lose them as well. Because if you elect the wrong people, boom, your constitution's been destroyed. Yeah, I've got some air rifles if you've ever watched my videos on them. But they're limited to 12 foot-pounds unless you have a license. If you mean stun guns and tasers, they're illegal. Don't ask any more questions regarding them. Right, I'll be going for another 5 minutes. There's lots of people that are getting detained in the UK now. because of fought crimes. There's also people that have been banned from entry, especially journalists, because they're not mainstream journalists. Right, pretty sure that guy was a troll, so he's gone. I reckon GCHQ, which is like our version of the NSA, was raiding one of my videos when we had this whole Russian spy nerve gas, super deadly poison that didn't kill anyone attack. And I was pointing out all the problems with the news media stories and the official government stories, because the thing is, the politicians couldn't even keep their story straight. Every day they'd say, oh no, they are actually poisoned in this way or poisoned in that way. And when I said, you know, this just seems really stupid, I didn't even say the Russians didn't do it. I just said, you know, I'd have thought if the Russians were killing somebody, they'd do a really efficient job at it. Because if, you know, the Russian Secret Service wants you dead, they just get you. You know, and because of that, I had these very obviously organised trolling attacks on a couple of my videos, where it was almost like copy and paste messages with bits changed each time. Every time it was, you know, accounts without a picture and everything else. You know, so it was obvious that they were making accounts just to troll the videos, and the only people that would actually have an interest in doing that is GCHQ. So I reckon I have been put on a watch list because, you know, I doubted an official story the government put out. Well, we should still be doing Brexit, but I bet the politicians are trying to derail it. But the country's getting angrier and angrier, so you have to wait and see if we have a civil war, I guess. People in loads of countries wear GP5s with old filters. I did see a good parody thing. I'll see if I can quickly find it and read it out, because it made me laugh. Maybe I saved the picture of it. It did really make me laugh, though. Here we go. I think this is somebody doing this on Twitter as a joke. As news of Yulia Shkiripol's miraculous recovery spreads around the world, shares in #Novichok plummet as its reputation for being the deadliest nerve agent known to man is called into question. So there you go, there's a good parody of stock market news for you. It depends on what country you're in. If you're in America, you're obviously not on a watch list for watching me. Yeah, NSA do it, GCHQ do it. Most governments now hire people to try and troll people's videos they don't like meme warfare. But, you know, they always lose to 4chan, don't they? All the meme warfare things, like the FBI and CIA were totally wiped out in the election with Trump when they were trying to counter-shill him. I didn't show a picture, I simply just read it out. I mean, I don't know if it's possible to actually just let me drag and drop the image onto the stream, and I'll see if anything happens. If I drop that on there, does anything happen? Let's have a look. There we go. Oh, I think that's actually working, okay. Let me just play and see if that's going to pop up on the stream picture. Yeah, it's just there. Let me drag it into the middle, and then I'll delete that once you've read it. So that did make me laugh when I read that. Yeah, so don't buy shares in Novichok. They lied. It's not the most deadly nerve agent known to man. Should get trading standards on them for making false claims. Right, it's been almost an hour then, so I'll be off. I might hopefully have time to do a longer stream sometime in the week, but I can't really tell you when yet, because I've still got quite a lot of stuff to do. Alright, yeah, so see you everybody. Hope you have enjoyed the stream. Like I said, I've been a bit irritated this morning because I'm waiting in for a parcel and I've had a few people asking like the same questions over and over again as usual. Yep, so I'll see you all later. And yeah, regular videos at 5 PM as usual, UK time.